The crystal spires of Lumina Prime burned against the night sky. Elder Counselor Thex Ara watched from the council chamber's great window as another section of the city turned to molten glass under enemy fire. The Kethmar ships hung in orbit like dark insects, their organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescent weapon ports. "How long until they break through the planetary shields?" Thexara asked, her voice barely a whisper. 3 days, maybe 4, replied. Military advisor Velshan, his usual confidence shattered. "Our defense fleet is gone. The orbital platforms are destroyed. We have nothing left." Thexara closed her 6 eyes and felt the weight of her species' fate pressing down on her thin shoulders. The Veltari had been a peaceful people for over 1,000 years. Their crystal cities were built for beauty, not war. Their ships carried scientists and artists, not soldiers. When the Kethmar Empire had demanded their surrender, offering slavery over extinction, the Council had foolishly refused. Now their children cowered in underground shelters while the surface world burned. "The evacuation ships?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Destroyed in the first wave. The Kethmar made sure of that. They want us to watch our world die slowly." Through the chamber's crystal walls, Thexara could see families huddled in the lower levels. Parents held their young ones close, whispering lies about rescue that would never come. The Veltari had sent messages to every allied world, every trading partner, every neutral system that might help. The responses had been the same: regret, sympathy, and silence. No one would risk the Kethmar's anger for a dying world. "There is one option," Velshan said quietly. "The old beacon." Thexara's head snapped toward him. "That's just a legend." "Maybe, but the archive keepers insist it's real. Hidden in the deep vaults since before the Republic fell. They say it can call the Guardian species." The Guardian species. Every child knew the stories. Mighty warriors who had once protected the weak across the galaxy. Heroes who would cross any distance to defend the innocent. But like all childhood tales, they were just stories. Weren't they? Even if such beings existed, they're gone now. The old Republic died 10,000 years ago. "The beacon is automated," Velshan continued. "Ancient technology that seeks out protector species across the galaxy, if any still exist." Another explosion rocked the city. Through the window, they watched a residential tower collapse in a shower of sparks and crystal fragments. Somewhere in that building, families had been hiding. Now they were dust. Thexara made her decision. The deep vaults beneath the council chambers were older than recorded history. Ancient machines hummed with power that no modern Veltari understood. The archive keepers led them through corridors, carved from living rock, past chambers filled with artifacts from civilizations that no longer existed. "Here," whispered Keeper Nixala, her ancient voice echoing in the darkness. "The beacon of last hope." It was smaller than Thexara had expected. A simple crystal matrix no larger than her hand, connected to machinery that seemed to pulse with its own life. Symbols covered its surface in languages that predated galactic standard. "How does it work?" Thexara asked. "We activate it, and it sends a signal across the galaxy. The message explains our situation and requests aid from any Guardian species it can find. The old records say it has never failed to find help. And if there are no Guardians left?" Nixella was quiet for a long moment. "Then we die knowing we tried everything." Above them, the bombardment continued. The planetary shields flickered and sparked as Kethmar plasma hammered against them. Soon, very soon, those shields would fail. Then the real slaughter would begin. Thexara placed her hand on the beacon. The crystal was warm to the touch, almost alive. "Do it." The beacon activated with a sound like singing crystal. Light flowed through its structure as ancient systems came online. Data streams flickered across its surface as it reached out across the galaxy, searching for anyone who might answer a desperate plea for help. The signal traveled through dimensions that ordinary space could not touch. It passed dead worlds and dying stars, empty systems where civilizations had once thrived. For weeks it searched, following programming older than most species, looking for the signs its creators had embedded in its core. It passed the boundaries of known space, moving through regions marked on no charts. Here, in a small system orbiting, a yellow star, it found something unexpected. Not the biosignatures of its target species, but something else. Something that matched the genetic markers for protector psychology, even more strongly than its original programming had hoped for. The signal locked onto the third planet of the system and began transmitting. Lieutenant Commander Dae-Ho Kim was finishing his coffee when the alarms started screaming. The deep space monitoring station Omega-7 was Earth's furthest listening post, positioned at the edge of the solar system to watch for threats from the void. In the 3 years Dae-Ho had been stationed here, the most exciting thing they'd detected was a rogue asteroid. "Sir, we're picking up an artificial signal," called Specialist So-Min Park from her station. "It's not from any Earth ship." Dae-Ho nearly dropped his coffee. First contact protocols started running through his mind as he moved to the main console. "Are you certain it's artificial?" "Positive, sir. It's a complex data stream with mathematical progressions that prove intelligence. And, sir, it's directed specifically at us." The main screen flickered to life, showing wave patterns and data streams. The signal was strong, purposeful, and definitely not human in origin. After centuries of searching the stars, something had finally found them first. "Can we decode it?" Dae-Ho asked. So-Min's fingers flew over her console. "The signal includes its own translation matrix. It's a distress call, sir. Someone's asking for help." As the translation program worked, words began appearing on the screen, fragmented at first, then clearer as the system learned the alien language patterns. "Peaceful people. Under attack. Request immediate assistance. Coordinates follow. Please help us." Dae-Ho stared at the message as more details filled in. Images accompanied the text. A beautiful world of crystal cities, a peaceful species with 6 eyes and graceful movements, and dark ships raining destruction from above. "Sir," So-Min said quietly, "they're dying. Someone out there is dying, and they're asking us to save them." Dae-Ho reached for the communication array. Earth needed to know about this immediately. Somewhere out in the darkness, aliens who had never heard of humanity were begging for help. They had no idea what they were asking for. They had no idea that Earth was classified by galactic civilization as a death world. They didn't know that humans were considered too dangerous for contact. They were calling for guardians. And they were about to get something far more terrifying than any guardian that had ever existed. They were about to get humanity. Admiral Jin-Woo Lee stood before the holographic display in the UEF Command Center, watching the alien distress signal play for the 5th time. The images were clear now after 3 days of computer enhancement, a species that looked almost fragile, with 6 eyes and crystalline cities that reminded him of artwork more than military installations. And the ships attacking them, massive, organic-looking vessels that fired with the deliberate cruelty of predators playing with their prey. "Analysis complete, Admiral," reported Captain Hai-Jin Choi, her uniform crisp, despite having worked for 18 hours straight. "The attacking vessels show no defensive patterns consistent with military doctrine. They're not trying to capture strategic positions or secure resources. They're systematically destroying everything." "Genocide," Jin-Woo said quietly. "Yes, sir, pure and simple." Around the command center, officers and analysts worked at their stations with the focused intensity that marked humanity's response to crisis. The signal had reached Earth 12 hours ago. In that time, every major government had been briefed. Every military commander consulted. every scientist given access to the data. The response had been unanimous. The Security Council's decision? Jin Woo asked, though he already knew. Unanimous vote to respond with military force. The President has authorized Operation Guardian Angel. We leave in 6 hours. Jin Woo nodded. It was typical of humanity, really. They'd spent centuries fighting each other, developing weapons and tactics in endless conflicts. But faced with innocent lives under threat, every nation on Earth had spoken with one voice: we help. Ship status: the Indomitable Spirit is ready for immediate deployment. Full crew complement, maximum armament loadout. Colonel Tae-Young Nam has his Marines aboard and ready. Dr. So-Min Park from the monitoring station is already en route to serve as our xenolinguist. The Indomitable Spirit was humanity's newest warship, built with technology that pushed the boundaries of physics. Fusion drives that could accelerate to significant fractions of light speed, kinetic weapons that fired projectiles at velocities that turned metal into pure energy. Defensive systems designed by people who understood that the universe was actively trying to kill them. It was also the most heavily armed single vessel ever constructed by human hands. Time to target system? Jin Woo asked. 47 light years. With the new FTL drive, approximately 14 days. Admiral Hye-Jin paused. We'll be arriving in unknown space, facing unknown enemies to help a species we've never met. This could be a trap. Jin Woo looked at the display again. A mother shielding her child as crystal buildings collapsed around them, civilians running from energy beams that turned them to ash. An entire world crying out for someone, anyone, to care that they were dying. Captain, in 300 years of space exploration, this is the first distress signal we've ever received from another intelligent species. The first time anyone has ever asked for our help. He turned to face her. Even if it is a trap, what kind of people would we be if we ignored it? Hye-Jin smiled. It was the response she'd expected, the response that made her proud to serve under his command. The kind that sleep well at night, sir. The kind that don't deserve to call themselves human. 3 hours later, the Indomitable Spirit hung in Earth's orbit like a spear point aimed at the stars. 800 meters of hardened titanium and ceramic armor bristling with weapons that could crack a moon. Inside, 1,500 crew members, prepared for humanity's first interstellar war. Colonel Tae-Young Nam walked through the Marine quarters, checking on his soldiers. They came from every nation on Earth: Korean, American, Russian, Nigerian, Brazilian, Japanese. Different languages, different cultures, united by the simple understanding that somewhere in the darkness, innocents were dying. Colonel called Sergeant Eunji Seo as she finished loading ammunition into her squad's assault rifles. Any word on what we're facing? Best estimates suggest the enemy uses organic technology. Biological ships, energy weapons, superior numbers. They seem to favor intimidation and terror tactics over efficient warfare. Sounds like they've never met humans before, said Private Min-Soo Jang, checking his weapons targeting system. Sir, what's our rules of engagement? Tae-Young considered the question. These aliens had sent a distress call across the galaxy, begging for help from species they'd never met. They were facing extinction at the hands of creatures who seemed to enjoy causing suffering. We saved the innocent, he said finally. Everything else is optional. On the bridge, Captain Hee-Jin Choi ran through final system checks. The ship's artificial intelligence, nicknamed Area, displayed status reports across multiple screens. Every system showed green, weapons charged, shields at maximum. The FTL drive hummed with barely contained energy. Communications? Any response to our transmission? She asked. Lieutenant Yoo-Jin Han shook his head. Nothing, Captain. Either they can't receive our signal or they're too busy staying alive to respond. The transmission had been simple. Lumina Prime, this is Earth vessel Indomitable Spirit. We received your distress call. Help is coming. Hold on. They had no way of knowing if the message would reach the aliens or if the aliens would understand it. Human translation computers were working with limited data. For all they knew, the message might come across as gibberish, or worse, as a threat. "Captain," called Tactical Officer Min-Soo Jang from his station. "Incoming priority transmission from Earth Command." On screen, Admiral Jin-Woo Lee's face appeared on the main display. "Captain Choi, you are authorized to use any and all necessary force to protect civilian populations in the target system. You have full discretionary authority to engage hostile forces. Earth stands behind you." "Understood, Admiral. We won't let them down." "I know you won't. Bring our people home, Captain, and show the galaxy what humanity stands for." The transmission ended. Ye-Jin looked around the bridge at her officers. They were young, most of them. This would be their first combat, their first time facing an enemy that wanted them dead. But their eyes showed no fear, only determination. "All stations, report ready status. Engineering ready, weapons ready, navigation ready, medical bay ready. Marines ready for deployment." Ye-Jin took a deep breath. Somewhere 47 light-years away, people were dying while others watched and did nothing. The galaxy had apparently decided that the Veltari weren't worth saving. The galaxy was about to learn what a mistake that was. "Area, activate FTL drive. Set course for Lumina Prime. Course laid in, Captain. Drive charging. All hands, this is the Captain. We are departing for our first contact with alien civilization. We go not as conquerors, but as protectors. We carry with us the hopes of everyone on Earth who believes that doing the right thing matters more than doing the safe thing. The universe is about to meet humanity. Let's make sure it's a meeting they'll never forget." The indomitable spirit vanished in a flash of twisted space-time, leaving Earth behind. In the monitoring stations, astronomers tracked the FTL signature until it faded beyond detection. Humanity had just taken its first step onto the galactic stage. They had no idea that step would shake the foundations of civilized space. The indomitable spirit dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Lumina system, sensors immediately scanning for threats. What they found made Captain He-Jin Choi's blood run cold. "Jesus Christ," whispered Tactical Officer Min-Soo Jang. "There's 50 of them." The Kethmar siege fleet hung around Lumina Prime like vultures around a dying animal. Their ships were massive, organic-looking vessels that pulsed with bioluminescent weapon ports. Each one was easily twice the size of the indomitable spirit. Their hulls grown rather than built, covered in what looked like scales and bone ridges designed to intimidate prey. "Captain," called Communications Officer Eugene Han, "I'm picking up transmissions from the planet. The distress signal is still active, but it's much weaker now. Are they still alive down there?" "Affirmative. I'm detecting scattered life signs in underground shelters. But the surface..." Eugene paused, checking his readings. "The surface is gone, Captain. The entire planet looks like it's been turned to glass." He-Jin felt rage building in her chest. They'd traveled 14 days through hyperspace, pushing their ship to its limits, hoping they'd arrive in time. Instead, they'd found a world in its death throes, surrounded by the creatures responsible. "Movement in the enemy fleet," reported Min-Soo. 3 ships breaking formation, heading our way. Distance approximately 2 million kilometers and closing. The main screen, the approaching Kethmar vessels grew larger. Their organic hulls writhed with muscle-like contractions, weapon ports opening like hungry mouths. They moved with the lazy confidence of predators who had never faced serious resistance. "Sir," called Dr. So-Min Park from her translation station, "I'm receiving a transmission from the lead ship. It's in their language, but I think I can make out the meaning." "Let's hear it." The bridge speakers crackled to life with sounds that barely qualified as language. Harsh, guttural noises that sounded more like an animal's growl than intelligent communication. But the translation program was working, and slowly, words began to appear on the screen. "Greetings, small ship. We are the Kethmar Empire. You arrive, just in time to witness the final moments of the Veltari vermin. We assume you have come to surrender your ship and crew to our glorious cause. Submit now, and your deaths will be swift." The transmission cut off, replaced by something that made every human on the bridge freeze in horror. Video footage from the planet's surface. Veltari civilians being herded into groups by Kethmar soldiers. The aliens were huge, 3 meters. Tall, built like armored insects, carrying weapons that fired streams of superheated plasma. Then the weapons fired. The Veltari didn't even have time to scream. "They're sending us footage of executions," So-Min whispered. "They think it will make us surrender." Hye-Jin watched the screen with growing fury. The Kethmar weren't just conquering the Veltari. They were enjoying it. The alien soldiers moved with casual cruelty, taking their time, making sure their victims understood exactly what was happening to them. "Captain," Min-Soo called out, his voice tight with anger, "the approaching ships are powering weapons. They expect us to run." Distance to enemy vessels: 1.8 million kilometers. They're within range of our kinetic batteries. Hye-Jin looked around the bridge. Her crew was young, inexperienced in real combat, but their faces showed the same cold rage she felt burning in her chest. The Kethmar had made a critical error. They'd shown humans exactly what they were. All hands, battle stations, load kinetic batteries with tungsten penetrators, target the lead ship's center mass. "Captain," called Lieutenant Nara O from the sensor station. "Our intelligence estimates suggest Kethmar hulls are heavily armored. We may not be able to penetrate their defenses with conventional weapons." "We're about to find out." "Min-Soo, you have targeting solutions?" "Aye, Captain. All 3 ships locked, weapons charged and ready." The Kethmar ships continued their approach, apparently confident that the small alien vessel would either flee or surrender. Their organic hulls rippled with bioluminescent patterns that probably served as some kind of threat display. They had no way of knowing that to human eyes, they just looked like targets. "Range, 1.5 million kilometers, Min-Soo reported. "Still closing." "Let them get closer," Hye-Jin said quietly. "I want to make sure we don't miss." The Kethmar ships were beautiful in their own terrible way. Millions of years of evolution had shaped them into perfect instruments of intimidation. Their hulls were designed to inspire fear, their weapons built to cause maximum suffering rather than quick death. They were the products of a species that had never faced a serious threat. They were about to learn what a mistake that was. 1 million kilometers, Min-Soo called out. "Captain, they're charging weapons. I think they're going to..." "Fire." The indomitable spirit's kinetic batteries spoke with the voice of physics itself. Tungsten penetrators accelerated to 15% of light speed, carrying kinetic energy that could crack continents. The projectiles crossed the distance between ships in seconds, moving too fast for the Kethmar sensors to track. The lead ship died first. The tungsten round punched through, its organic hull like paper, the kinetic energy flash converting everything it touched into superheated plasma. The entire forward section of the ship simply vanished, replaced by an expanding cloud of vaporized metal and biological matter. The second ship tried to turn, its pilot finally understanding that they were facing something more dangerous than expected. It didn't matter. The tungsten round hit its engine section, and the ship broke apart in a cascade of secondary explosions. The third ship actually managed to fire back, launching some kind of biological projectile that looked like a living creature with teeth. The indomitable spirit's point defense systems vaporized it before it could cross half the distance between ships. Then the third ship died too. "All 3 targets destroyed," Min-Soo reported, his voice calm despite the adrenaline flooding his system. "Total engagement time, 4.7 seconds. The bridge was silent for a moment as the crew processed what had just happened. They'd faced their first alien enemy, and the aliens had lasted less than 5 seconds. "Captain," called Eugene. "Massive movement in the main fleet. They're all turning toward us. I think they're confused." Confused? The transmissions. I'm picking up. They keep repeating the same phrases. Impossible. How did they penetrate our hulls? What kind of weapons are those? Hyojin smiled grimly. The Kethmar Empire had built their entire military doctrine around intimidation and overwhelming force. They'd never faced an enemy that could destroy their ships faster than they could process what was happening. "Open a channel to the main." "Fleet," she ordered. "Channel open, Captain." "Attention, Kethmar Fleet. This is Captain Hyojin Choi of the Earth vessel Indomitable Spirit. You have exactly 1 minute to cease your attack on Lumina Prime and withdraw from this system. If you do not comply, we will destroy every ship in your fleet." The response came back in the same guttural language as before, but the translation was clear. "You are only 1 ship against 50. You cannot threaten the might of the Kethmar Empire." 30 seconds, Hyojin replied calmly. On Lumina Prime, Elder Counselor Thexara huddled in her underground shelter, listening to the sounds of bombardment above. The Kethmar had been slowly destroying their world for weeks, taking their time, enjoying the terror they caused. Then the bombardment stopped. Through her shelter's communication array, she could hear confused chatter from the Kethmar fleet. Something about unknown attackers, destroyed ships, impossible weapons. She dared to hope that perhaps another species had finally come to help. She had no idea that her desperate prayer had been answered by beings that would make even the Kethmar look like prey animals. The galaxy was about to witness something unprecedented. The first time a species had ever made the mistake of threatening someone humanity had decided to protect. War Chief Graktor stared at his tactical display in disbelief. 3 of his ships had simply vanished, destroyed by weapons that shouldn't exist. The small alien vessel hung in space like a predator waiting to strike, and for the first time in his long career, Graktor felt something he'd never experienced before. Fear. "Time's up," came the alien transmission. War Chief Graktor had commanded Kethmar fleets for over 2 decades. He had watched worlds burn, heard the last screams of dying species, and never once felt anything resembling doubt. The Kethmar Empire was the apex predator of the galaxy, and he was one of its finest instruments of destruction. Now, staring at his tactical display, he felt something cold spreading through his armored chest. 3 of his ships had been destroyed in seconds by weapons that defied everything he understood about warfare. The small alien vessel hung motionless in space, radiating a kind of predatory patience that made his sensory organs twitch with alarm. "War Chief," called his tactical advisor, "the alien ship is moving. Single vessel, heading directly for our formation." 1 ship against 50, Graktor snarled, forcing confidence into his voice. "Signal all vessels. Destroy it." The Kethmar fleet opened fire as one. 50 warships unleashed their full arsenals. Plasma streams that could melt asteroids, bioweapons that devoured metal, gravity distorters that could crush a ship's hull like an empty shell. The space between the fleets lit up with enough destructive energy to sterilize a small moon. None of it mattered. The indomitable spirit slipped through the barrage like a dancer avoiding raindrops. Its defensive systems tracked every incoming projectile, point defense batteries destroying biological weapons while energy shields deflected plasma streams. The ship moved with a precision that seemed impossible, as if its pilot could see the future. "How are they doing that?" Graktor's sensor operator whispered. Captain Hyojin Choi watched the enemy fire patterns on her tactical display with the cold calculation of a predator. Human defensive doctrine had been developed through centuries of warfare on a planet that actively tried to kill its inhabitants. Dodging incoming projectiles was just another day at the office. Minsu, target. Selection? "I've identified what appears to be their command vessel, Captain," Largest ship in the formation, center position, maximum armor. Probably where their leader is directing the battle. Perfect. Load armor-piercing tungsten. I want to send a message. The kinetic round that killed Graktor's flagship carried more energy than some nuclear weapons. It punched through the Kethmar ship's bio-armor like it was tissue paper, the sheer kinetic force liquefying everything in its path. The massive vessel broke apart in slow motion, its organic hull splitting along natural fault lines. Graktor had just enough time to understand that he'd made a terrible mistake before the expanding shockwave vaporized his command center. Direct. Hit on the enemy flagship, Minsu reported. Total destruction. No survivors. Good. Next target. The Kethmar fleet was in chaos. Their tactical coordination had depended on Graktor's flagship, and with it gone, individual captains were making desperate decisions. Some tried to flee, their ships breaking formation in panic. Others attacked with increasing desperation, pouring fire at the impossible alien vessel that danced between their weapons like it was playing a game. "Captain," called Colonel Tae-Young Nam from the Marine Bay, "several enemy ships are showing structural damage. Request permission to board and capture intelligence." "Granted. Take Alpha and Bravo squads. I want to know everything about these bastards." The assault shuttles launched from the Indomitable Spirit's hangar bay like bullets from a gun. They were small, fast, and armored with the same technology that protected the main ship. The Kethmar fired everything they had at the incoming shuttles, but human pilots had trained in Earth's gravity well, dodging orbital debris at speeds that would kill most aliens. Sergeant Yoonji Seo felt the familiar weight of her power armor as the shuttle approached the damaged Kethmar vessel. Through her visor, she could see the alien ship's organic hull writhing as it tried to repair itself. It looked more like a wounded animal than a spacecraft. "Remember, people," she called to her squad over the comm. "These things just got done. Executing civilians for fun. No quarter." The shuttle punched through the Kethmar ship's hull with a shaped charge that opened a perfect breachway. Yoonji led her Marines into the alien vessel, their assault rifles tracking for targets in the twisted corridors of living metal. They found the first Kethmar warriors 30 meters into the ship. The aliens were huge, 3 meters tall, armored, in what looked like naturally grown carapaces, carrying weapons that pulsed with organic energy. They moved with the confidence of apex predators who had never faced serious resistance. That confidence lasted exactly as long as it took Yoonji to open fire. Human assault rifles fired caseless ammunition at hypersonic velocities. The tungsten core rounds punched through Kethmar armor like it was cardboard, each impact delivering enough kinetic energy to liquefy internal organs. The alien warriors died without understanding what had killed them. Contact front. Yoonji reported as her squad moved deeper into the ship. "Enemy resistance eliminated. These things are tough, but their armor isn't designed for kinetic weapons." More Kethmar appeared around a corner, these ones carrying what looked like biological flamethrowers. They opened fire with streams of superheated plasma that would have melted most infantry armor. Against human power armor, designed to operate in environments that would kill most life forms, the plasma was merely uncomfortable. Private Minsu. Jang charged straight through the plasma stream, his armor's cooling systems working overtime. He reached the first alien before it could react, driving his vibro knife through its chest armor. The Kethmar warrior looked down at the blade protruding from its torso with what might have been surprise, then toppled backward. "These things have never fought anything that could hurt them," Jang reported. "They don't even know how to take cover properly." The battle for the Kethmar ship lasted 18 minutes. The aliens fought with desperate courage, but courage without experience was just another way to die quickly. Human Marines had trained for urban combat in bombed-out cities, boarding actions on ships designed to kill intruders, and assault operations, in environments where a single mistake meant death. The Kethmar had trained to intimidate prey species into submission. "Ship secured," Yoonji reported as her Marines finished clearing the last compartment. "We've captured their data cores and taken several prisoners," Colonel, you're going to want to see this. Meanwhile, the space battle continued to rage around Lumina Prime. But rage wasn't really the right word anymore. The Kethmar fleet was being systematically dismantled by a single human warship that seemed to anticipate their every move. Science. Officer Yujin Han watched his sensors as another enemy vessel broke apart under kinetic bombardment. Captain, I'm reading massive power fluctuations in the remaining ships. I think they're trying to retreat. How many left? 37 vessels, down from 50. Captain. Yujin paused, checking his readings again. The enemy ships are sending surrender signals. They want to talk. Yujin looked at the tactical display. The remaining Kethmar ships were pulling back from Lumina Prime, their weapons powered down, transmitting what the translation computers identified as requests for negotiation. Open a channel. The voice that came through was different from the earlier transmissions. Younger, more frightened. Human vessel. This is Sub-Commander Thexal of the Kethmar fleet. We request terms of surrender. We did not know. We were not informed that this system was under the protection of the Deathworld species. Deathworld species? Haye Jin asked. Your species? Humans? You are listed in our databases as inhabitants of a quarantine world. We were told that contact was forbidden because you were too dangerous. We did not know you had achieved space, travel. We did not know you would respond to the Veltari signal. The pieces began falling into place. Humanity wasn't just unknown to galactic civilization. They were actively avoided. Earth was apparently classified as too dangerous for contact, its inhabitants considered a threat to civilized space. The irony wasn't lost on her. The galaxy had been so afraid of humanity that they'd refused all contact. And in doing so, they'd left the Veltari to die alone, forcing humans to make first contact in the worst possible way. Sub-Commander Thexal, she said finally, you will withdraw all forces from this system immediately. You will never return, and you will send word to every ship in your empire that Lumina Prime is now under human protection. Anyone who threatens the Veltari will answer to us. Understood. We withdraw. Please do not follow us. The remaining Kethmar ships began moving away from Lumina Prime with desperate haste. They had come expecting easy prey, and found apex predators instead. Word would spread quickly through their empire. There was a new power in the galaxy, and it protected those who could not protect themselves. On the planet's surface, Elder Counselor Thexara emerged from her shelter. For the first time in weeks, the bombardment had stopped, the alien ships were leaving, and in orbit above her devastated world, a single vessel waited like a guardian angel. Their prayer had been answered. But as she looked up at the stars, Thexara wondered if they had any idea what they had unleashed upon the galaxy. 3 months after the Battle of Lumina Prime, the largest fleet in galactic history assembled at the edge of Union space. Over 800 warships from 60 different species, commanded by Grand Admiral Vexhan of the Zeridian Empire. Their mission was simple: eliminate the human threat before it could spread further. The humans had not been idle during those 3 months. Captain Hyejin Choi stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit, now part of a small human task force that had grown to include 5 warships and a carrier full of fighter squadrons. They faced impossible odds, just as they had at Lumina Prime. The difference was that now they weren't fighting alone. Captain, reported Tactical Officer Min-Su Jang, I'm reading massive hyperspace signatures. The Union fleet is dropping out of FTL at the system edge. How many? 843 ships, various classes. Mass displacement suggests we're looking at everything from fast attack craft to dreadnought-class vessels. On the main screen, the Union fleet appeared like a dark cloud against the stars. Ships of dozens of different designs, representing the combined military might of galactic civilization. They moved with the confident precision of a force that had never known defeat. They were about to learn what defeat felt like. Communications, open a channel to the Veltari defense platforms, Hiejin ordered. Channel open, Captain. Elder Counselor Thexara. Are your people ready? The reply came from the crystalline defense platforms that now orbited Lumina Prime. Ready, Captain Choi. The planetary shields are at maximum power. Our new weapon systems are charged and targeting solutions locked. Those weapon systems were a gift from Earth. Human kinetic batteries and missile launchers operated by Veltari technicians who had spent 3 months learning the art of war from species that had perfected it. The peaceful crystal builders had proven surprisingly adept students. Captain, called Admiral Jin Woo Lee from the command carrier Defiant Hope, we're receiving a transmission from the Union fleet. They're demanding our immediate surrender. Let's hear it. Grand Admiral Vexhan's image appeared on the screen. He was tall, elegant, with features that suggested generations of genetic perfection. Everything about him spoke of refined civilization and absolute authority. Human vessels, you are in violation of Galactic Union law. You have interfered with authorized military operations and corrupted a protected species with your violent ideologies. Surrender immediately, and your deaths will be swift. Hiejin smiled. It was the same mistake the Kethmar had made, assuming that threats would make humans back down. Grand Admiral, this is Captain Hiejin Choi of the Earth Defense Force. You have exactly 1 minute to withdraw from this system before we demonstrate why your ancestors were smart enough to quarantine us. Vexhan's expression shifted to something between amusement and disdain. Captain, you are outnumbered 100 to 1. Your species is primitive, violent, and utterly outmatched. This ends now. The transmission cut off. Around the system, the Union fleet began moving into attack formation. Their ships were beautiful, elegant curves and flowing lines that spoke of aesthetic perfection. They moved like dancers, each vessel finding its place in patterns that had been refined over millennia of conquest. They were facing opponents who had learned warfare in the gravity well of a death world, where beauty was irrelevant and only effectiveness mattered. All ships execute Phoenix Protocol, Admiral Lee commanded. The human ships scattered like seeds on the wind, abandoning formation for individual combat patterns that made no sense to Union tactical doctrine. Each vessel became a lone predator, moving with the unpredictable lethality that marked apex hunters. Commander Wu Jin Bei led his fighter squadron from the carrier Defiant Hope, 50 small craft against a fleet that could darken a star. His pilots were young, most of them fresh from Earth's military academies, but they had trained in simulators programmed with combat data from every war humanity had ever fought. Red Squadron, remember your training, he called over the comm. These ships are big, slow, and designed for intimidation. We're fast, smart, and designed to kill. Make every shot count. The first wave of Union fighters met Red Squadron in the space between fleets. The alien craft were larger, more heavily armed, built with the assumption that size and firepower determined victory. They flew in perfect formations, each pilot following predetermined patterns that had worked against every enemy they'd ever faced. They had never faced enemy pilots who flew like they were personally offended by the existence of targets. Lieutenant Soo-jung Kim dove her fighter through a formation of Union interceptors, her plasma cannons stitching lines of destruction across their hulls. The aliens tried to follow, but human fighters could pull maneuvers that would kill most organic beings. Kim's fighter twisted through 3 dimensions simultaneously, defying several laws of physics in the process. Kim, you've got 6 on your tail, called her wingman. Lieutenant Dongmin Park, copy that. Watch this. Kim aimed her fighter directly at the largest Union battleship and accelerated to maximum velocity. The 6 pursuing fighters followed, their pilots confident that the human would break off before committing suicide against the battleship's hull. Human pilots, the aliens were learning, had a very different relationship with the concept of suicide. Kim held course until the last possible second, then pulled up and over the battleship's superstructure, using its bulk to shield her from her pursuers' weapons. The 6 alien fighters, caught off guard by the maneuver, found themselves flying directly into the battleship's point defense systems. The friendly fire incident that followed destroyed 3 Union fighters and damaged 2 more. Kim was already gone, diving into another engagement with the casual brutality of an apex predator. Meanwhile, the capital ship engagement had begun in earnest. The Union dreadnoughts opened fire with weapons that could crack moons, confident that their overwhelming firepower would make short work of the primitive human vessels. They discovered that human ships didn't fight like civilized warships. They fought like rabid animals. The indomitable Spirit slipped between 2 Union battleships, her kinetic batteries firing continuously. Tungsten rounds punched through alien hulls with surgical precision, each shot targeted at critical systems, rather than impressive displays of destructive power. The human ship moved like a predator among prey, dealing death with efficient brutality. "Captain," called Min Su from his tactical station, "multiple Union ships are breaking formation. I think they're trying to retreat." "Not happening. Target their engines. I want them dead in space." The battle raged for 4 hours. The Union fleet, despite overwhelming numerical superiority, found itself being systematically dismantled by opponents who fought with a viciousness that defied all military doctrine. Human ships took damage that should have crippled them and kept fighting. Human pilots flew missions that should have been suicide runs and somehow survived. And when Union ships tried to surrender, they discovered that humans didn't always accept surrender from people who preyed on the innocent. Lieutenant Soo-jung Kim was leading her damaged fighter back to the carrier when she saw it, a Union heavy cruiser moving toward one of the Veltari defense platforms, its weapons charging for what looked like a final spite attack against the Crystal City below. Her fighter was damaged, nearly out of ammunition, and running on emergency power. The smart thing to do was break off and let someone else handle it, Soo-jung. Kim had not joined the Earth Defense Force to do smart things. "Control, this is Red 7. I'm making an attack run on Union heavy cruiser bearing 27 Mark IV. Tell my family I love them." "Red 7, negative, break off. You don't have the firepower to penetrate that ship's armor." "Copy that, Control. Breaking." "Off, now!" Kim aimed her fighter at the Union cruiser's engine section and pushed her damaged reactor to emergency overload. The explosion that followed was visible from 3 light minutes away, a brief star that consumed both ships in nuclear fire. The Veltari platform she died protecting continued to beam its message across the galaxy. Humanity came when no one else would. Humanity fought when no one else could. Remember this day. Remember who stands with the innocent. When the battle ended, over 600 Union ships had been destroyed or disabled. The human task force had lost 2 ships and 37 fighters. Grand Admiral Vex Han's flagship drifted powerless in space, its crew waiting for rescue that might never come. "Open a channel to all surviving Union vessels," Admiral Lee commanded. His message was simple. "This is Admiral Jinwoo Lee of the Earth Defense Force. You came here to destroy a peaceful world because your laws said it was acceptable. You learned today that some things matter more than law. Return to your homes. Tell your leaders what you saw here. And remember, any species that threatens the innocent will answer to humanity." In the months that followed, the story of the Battle of Lumina Prime spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The humans had done the impossible. They had faced the combined might of galactic civilization and won. More importantly, they had done it for strangers who could offer them nothing but gratitude, species that had been marked for authorized conquest began sending distress signals toward Earth. Pirates who had operated under Union protection found their ships being hunted by human task forces.